Welcome along to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive. If you love getting into the nuts and bolts of rugby, the tactics, the big stories, the players, well, you're definitely in the right spot. And hey, before we jump in today, make sure you hit subscribe to Rugby Obsession wherever you listen. Honestly, you won't want to miss our deep dives. Okay, so today, wow, we're looking at something pretty significant coming out of French rugby. It's got a lot of people talking. We're talking about the coach, Fabien Galthie, and his decision, a big one, to send, well, what's being called a second-string squad to New Zealand for the three-test series in July.
Yeah, it's huge. This isn't just rotating a couple of guys.
Exactly. It feels like a really strategic move, but
Yeah.
maybe one they had to make. That's what we want to unpack today. We'll look at the why, or, what it means for the players and what it tells us about, well, the crazy demands of modern rugby.
It's fascinating because it really highlights this tension, doesn't it, between club rugby and the international game. Galthie's choice. It's sort of lays bare the pressure cooker that is the global rugby calendar. It's not about trying to gain some sneaky advantage over the All Blacks.
No, it seems much more fundamental than that.
Right. It feels like it's about necessity, about player welfare, player sustainability, almost like his hand was forced.
Yeah, forced hand feels like the right phrase. So the headline here, if you haven't seen it, is France a real powerhouse lately facing the All Blacks with a very different looking team. And the reason Galthie gave, player fatigue, plain and simple. He talked about a grueling club campaign for his top guys.
And when a coach like Galthie says that so openly, it really hits home. It tells you just how intense the physical and mental load is in pro rugby right now. It's his constant battle, isn't it? Clubs need their stars for their leagues, their commercial success. But then the national team gets players who are, well, running on fumes sometimes.
It feels unsustainable.
It really does. You wonder if we're reaching a kind of breaking point where this club versus country thing just isn't working smoothly anymore.
And grueling club campaign that really resonates when you think about the French top 14 especially. It's relentless. So who are we talking about? Who's missing from this tour? Some massive names.
Oh, definitely key players.
You've got Louis Bielle-Biarrey, the winger. Thomas Ramos at fullback, so reliable. Gregory Aldrit, the big number 8. All rested specifically because of workload.
Huge losses for any team.
And then, of course, Antoine Dupont, their captain, arguably the best player in the world. He's still out recovering from that knee injury from February.
So yeah, you're not just missing squad players. These are the guys you build a team around, the game changers.
Which brings up that big question, like, what does this do to the contest? Test rugby relies on seeing the best against the best, right?
Exactly. And Galthie's words on this were pretty blunt. He said, we don't have a choice other than picking players who have finished their seasons.
No choice. That's stark.
It really is. It's not tactical mind games. It sounds like pure pragmatism, dealing with the reality of the situation his players are in.
So, no choice. Heading into a series against the All Blacks, wow. It shows the pressure. But interestingly, Galthie also tried to frame it, maybe out of necessity, as a positive. He called it an opportunity for us to work with the best players available. So, a chance for new guys to step up.
Yeah, and look, there's truth to that. Getting a cap, especially against New Zealand, is invaluable experience for younger players. It can fast-track their development.
True. But is it the right kind of experience?
Yeah.
Being thrown in against the All Blacks with a potentially understrength team, that could be a really tough initiation.
That's the risk, absolutely. It's a massive gamble. You risk heavy defeats, maybe denting confidence, even injuries. If players aren't quite ready for that intensity, it's definitely going to test France's depth.
You mentioned the workload, and the numbers Galthie must be looking at are just, well, they really tell the story. Let's look at that disparity you mentioned. Bielle-Biarrey, who's being rested. He's played 29 games this season. Club and country combined. 29.
Wow, that's a huge number.
Now, compare that to, say, the All Blacks captain, Scott Barrett. He's played just 14 times for the Crusaders this season.
14 versus 29, that's almost double the game time. It's night and day.
It really puts Galthie's grueling campaign comment into perspective, doesn't it?
And it points directly to the difference in how the seasons are structured. Super Rugby Pacific in New Zealand wraps up just before this July window. So their players, theoretically, come into the international period fresher.
Right.
Whereas the top 14 in France, it's a marathon. It goes on, finishing with incredibly intense playoff finals right now.
Yeah.
Just as the international season kicks off.
So the timing is completely different.
Completely. The top 14 is arguably the toughest, most attritional domestic league anywhere. So French players are often hitting the test window already fatigued.
And Galthie wasn't shy about pointing this out as a wider issue, was he? He talked about obligations linked to our season schedule and the particularities of each country.
Yeah, he did.
And then he dropped
Yeah.
that quite pointed line. Or, the New Zealanders can help us to reinvent our domestic season schedule.
Huh. Yeah, that was cheeky. But it makes a serious point.
It does. It's basically saying, look, this isn't just our problem. This is a global rugby scheduling problem.
It absolutely is. It raises massive questions about aligning the global calendar. Every league, every union has its own priorities, its own broadcast deals, its history.
Yeah, getting everyone on the same page seems impossible sometimes.
It's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
When you see situations like this, where a top nation feels forced to compromise its test team because of club schedules, it really forces the issue.
Yeah.
Player welfare suffers, the international game potentially suffers.
So Galthie's comment, maybe provocative, is really highlighting a need for, I don't know, a bigger conversation, a more unified approach maybe.
I think so. Or at least acknowledging the strain the current system puts on everyone, especially the players. The conversation needs to happen, even if finding solutions is complex.
Okay, so thinking about how they're actually putting this squad together, it sounds complicated. For this weekend's game against England, the non-capped one, they named a 28-man squad. But get this, it has no one playing in the top 14 semifinals this weekend.
Right. So immediately, a huge chunk of potential players are unavailable because of club duty. That shows the direct conflict right there.
And it doesn't stop there, does it? The squad building is happening in stages.
Yeah, it's quite something. They'll add about 12 more players on Sunday after the semis. But even then, if your team makes the top 14 final next weekend, you're still not joining the main group yet.
So players are joining at different times, missing crucial preparation.
Exactly. It makes building cohesion, practicing set plays, getting everyone on the same wavelength incredibly difficult. It's a massive handicap before they even get on the plane to New Zealand.
And then for the actual test series starting July 5th, there's another step.
That's right. After the top 14 final is done and dusted, they have the option to call in up to 5 more players, presumably guys who played in that final.
Wow. It really is a rolling, reactive squad assembly. It shows incredible adaptability, I guess, but it's far from ideal preparation for taking on the All Blacks.
Not ideal at all. It underlines just how much Galthie's hands are tied by the domestic schedule.
You know, as we're talking through all this, it's a good moment to remind everyone listening, if you find these kinds of deep dives valuable, please do subscribe to Rugby Obsession. It really helps us keep digging into these important stories. And we genuinely want to know what you think about this situation. Does this worry you for international rugby? How much pressure are these players under? What's your take on player welfare versus the demands of the pro game? Let us know.
Yeah, please do. Because it's important for us as listeners and fans to think about the bigger picture here. This French situation.
Yeah.
It isn't just a one-off weird event. It feels like a symptom of these wider pressures in the game globally. It really makes you ask if the current setup, the calendars, the club demands, is actually good for the players, good for the international game, or even good for the long-term health of rugby itself.
Are we seeing the cracks appear, do you think?
I think we might be at, or certainly approaching, a really important crossroads. The physical toll on players just seems to be going up and up. The seasons are so long, so intense. This France tour could genuinely be a wake-up call.
Right.
Maybe it forces that difficult conversation about aligning the global schedule, finding a better balance.
Because the alternative.
The alternative might be more situations like this, more top teams sending understrength sides for major tours or windows. And that eventually impacts the quality, the spectacle, the very integrity of test match rugby.
Okay, so just to sort of wrap up where we've landed here, we've seen this major dilemma for France. This clash between their intense domestic season, the top 14, and the needs of the national team. It's led coach Fabien Galthie to make this huge call, resting key players, sending a development-focused squad to New Zealand.
A decision driven by player welfare, by necessity, but one that obviously raises big questions.
Yeah, questions about the global calendar, about player burnout, about the future structure of the sport.
And that's the thought to leave you with, really. Beyond just France versus New Zealand this July. What does this signal for international rugby overall? Are other countries going to face these same tough choices more often? Could Galthie's maybe slightly pointed comment about needing help to reinvent our domestic season schedule, could that actually be the start of something bigger?
Could this forced compromise actually trigger some positive, necessary change?
It's possible. Sometimes it takes a situation like this to force a rethink. Definitely something for all of us to chew on.